Holy shit, it's finally here. What the fuck? It fucking took them 7 months to implement something like this. What the fuck? 7 months. What's up, you guys? Gongrongzong here. So it's been a while, and TU6 has finally arrived. I'm not going to go through the entire laundry list of changes that come with TU6 in this video. That'll be wasting your time, as you can easily read them in their condensed version in the patch notes. I'm here to share with you my thoughts about whether you should come back or continue playing, whether you should invest time back into this game that, as we all know, has been a big flop. And here's my evaluation. After reading through all of the patch notes, dabbling around a little on the PTS, and playing several hours of the live game. It depends on the type of person you are and the type of player you are. I'm really not trying to give such a non-committal answer here, but it really does depend. There are a lot of good things about this patch, but there are also a few things that are, how shall I say, pretty indicative that the game is still not ready yet. You might love this patch or you might not, and here's the first biggest part of this patch you may love or hate. Be prepared to refarm basically everything. Yes, here we go again, with the constant round of nerfs and buffs and nerfs and buffs, and round the merry-go-round we go. Whether you're a returning player or a current player, it matters not. TU6 is about to turn everything upside down, inside out. Let me give you an example, and this is just one of many examples. Talents, remember those things that each armor piece had one or sometimes two of? Yeah, armor talents are now unique, meaning you can only put one of each into each gear slot. Yep, you heard that right. So all that hard-hitting or devastating gear you stacked up, good riddance to those pieces of gear. They're essentially useless now besides the one. And so many people are pissed, and rightly so. This is about the second or third major revamp in about half a year of the game's existence. These are some pretty big indicators that the game was nowhere near ready at launch, and still isn't ready. These changes are huge. Look at the sweeping numbers across all of the guns. It just confirms what we as the player base knew all along. The game was widely unbalanced and is still not really in a very stable state. Changes will always happen in a live service game, but 2 to 3 overhauls in about 6 months? That's not a good sign. So if you're sick and tired of all the constant farming, sick and tired of having paid for a game that was definitely not ready at launch, TU6 may not be a patch you want to come back to. However, that being said, the silver lining to this is that the devs are saying that this is the last major revamp for the foreseeable future. There will be no more overhauls after this, and we are free to farm the gear from here on out, knowing that what we farm now will still be useful months down the road. I don't know, man, we've all heard this rhetoric before. But if this is to be true, then it's definitely a piece of good news. The gear changes, as painful as they are, do put the game in a better place, from both a balancing and gear farming perspective. There are going to be a lot of new builds due to all these changes, way more build variety than previously. Many more guns and sets will be seeing much more prominence in the coming weeks, and it will be fun to farm for them and try out new builds. Like the previously mentioned point about gear talents, there won't be any more mindless stacking of the same hard-hitting or devastating talent. There will of course be a meta, but by and large it definitely promotes much more talent variety than previously. Other examples include how shotguns and SMGs, both high-end and their exotic versions, are being brought up to par with the other guns. Finally we can see some close-range combat alongside the long-range ones. And coupled with this would be the new targeted loot option, which basically just allows you to target specific pieces of gear in specific missions, reducing the amount of RNG for you in obtaining your specific piece of loot you've been trying to hunt down. So basically, on this point, the farm for the gear and all the new builds is a great thing, and will provide quite a few hours of solid entertainment, especially if you're someone that likes to experiment and try out new builds. But only come back if you believe the devs in how these changes are supposed to be long-lasting. If you don't, and I don't blame you for that, then the best thing you can do will be to wait it out and see. But of course, that's not all that's coming with TU6. I'm sure you guys want to know about the new specialization, the Technician. I'm not going to go through everything about the Technician here, but in short, it's clear that it was designed to be a skill-based pseudo-support spec. It can definitely hold its own in a solo setting, but by and large, the same rhetoric is going to hold true of guns being the best form of damage overall. It's definitely going to be an interesting addition to, say, a 4-man group context while doing something invaded at heroic difficulty, whereby it's key to take out enemy skill proxies or their weak points. But by and large, for 90% of the content, it's probably going to lag slightly behind other specs, and definitely so in the current raid, where it's more important to pump as many bullets as possible into enemy targets as quickly as possible. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing inherently wrong with this, and if you're just in it for the fun factor, I don't doubt that playing the Technician for an all-out skill build is going to be a blast. If you're someone that's always leaned more towards skills, the specialization that is meant to use skills is finally here. But if you're someone that's more gun orientated, you might not want to return to TU6 just for this specialization. Now, what about the actual content, the 2 new missions? Well, I'm gonna state it pretty simply, and this may offend some of you guys, but it's truly what I think. If you're going to come back to TU6 for the missions, don't. There's nothing inherently bad about the missions. They're beautiful and well designed. But like all other missions in this game, they don't work if at the core the game doesn't, and they'll just turn into something forgettable in a week or two, which segues nicely into the next point. Most importantly, the core problems of this game are still largely unaddressed. The first being, of course, that the Division 2 still has no actual endgame. Raids are not a form of endgame. They may be in a game like WoW or Destiny, but they aren't designed similarly in the Division 2. I wouldn't even call them raids in this game, more like giant missions with more people. It isn't a raid if your entire goal is to see how fast you can complete it. That's a time trial or speedrun, not a raid. All of this new gear grind in TU6, even if it's super fun and extremely balanced and all problems with loot and RNG have been solved, it's still going to be a grind for, essentially, nothing. Of course, we should be enjoying the journey, I get that. But with no end goal in sight, the game quickly loses any sense of purpose. And the raid that was supposed to come out with TU6 that's been delayed until 2020 also doesn't solve this issue if it were on time. A true endgame experience is needed for this game, and this point has been beaten to death already. Just look over your shoulder and take some pointers from the first game. Something akin to survival, something akin to underground, something akin to resistance. These concepts all worked very well and were well received. They gave the player base, both hardcore and casual, a purpose to farm the gear, a sense of fulfillment from farming all that gear, and great communities grew out of them. A community, or in this case, in-game clans, cannot sustain themselves on a weekly reset of 1 raid or black task reset a week. So should you continue playing in TU6 or come back if you're a returning player? Yeah, I would say give it a shot. You already bought the game, so all of this isn't going to cost you any more. Give it a try. There are truly a lot of changes that have an overall positive impact on the game. But beyond that, I'll still suggest taking a lighter approach to the game and not invest too much of yourself into it. A touch and go sort of approach. Treat the game as how the devs like to state it as. If you don't like it, take a break from the game and come back later on when it's in a better state. I myself took a break from it, and it certainly helped to give me a much healthier approach to the game. But make no mistake, the Division 2 is far from ready, and a lot more time and investment will be needed before it reaches the ranks of anything even remotely great.